Hello and welcome to my JavaScript course. So my JavaScript course is made up of two modules. Today, of course, is the first part. Basically, we will be learning about the basic things you need to know to get started with JavaScript. All the tags, the statements, a basic introduction. So let's get started. Okay, so what will we learn today? Firstly, we'll start with the invention of JavaScript, about how Brendan Eich created JavaScript. Then we'll move on to comments. Then we'll go on to variables. And finally, we'll learn about data types. That should be enough for all of you to get started on JavaScript and have a basic understanding. So, the invention of JavaScript. In 1995, Brendan Eich created JavaScript in just 10 days at Netscape. Basically, this revolutionized web interactivity. Before JavaScript was created, webs were stylish, but they were still plain. You couldn't interact with them as much as you could after JavaScript was invented. Because of this, JavaScript quickly became a web development essential. So, because of it, it enabled real-time changes on pages and it powered interactive content globally. So, what are a few important points we must remember while learning JavaScript? Okay, so first of all, you may not remember this forever, so you can come back here once you're done with the JavaScript course to go through it again so that you can understand it even more. First of all, when we are trying to write JavaScript, we can use JavaScript compilers like programmers, or we can use Notepad. When we are using Notepad, we must remember to use the JavaScript code and embed it into an HTML web page, because Notepad doesn't allow to just insert it as a JavaScript web page itself. So you need the HTML skeleton, which is doctype HTML, then HTML. Then you then comes your head and body. In the head, it's an optional choice to put the title. Then in body, we must put the script tag. Now, script tag is very important for JavaScript web pages because because it shows the computer that you are trying to embed JavaScript code into an HTML web page. Then you insert your JavaScript code, you end the script, you end the body, and you end the HTML. So, secondly, JavaScript is case sensitive. What does this mean? This means that we cannot write tags like var, which is a tag for a variable we'll learn about after, next. So we cannot write it as capital VAR, just like how we can't write document.write as capital document.write. Now, what document.write is, it's a simple tag to write something on your JavaScript web page. So, thirdly, when trying to insert multiple codes in one line, we must use a semicolon. Now, now let's move on to comments. So, what are comments and what are the types? Comments are basically just headers or points that you keep for yourself to remember something, or for a reader who's reading your code to understand something. Let's take an example. Say you're developing a really big game like Subway Surfers, right? Then you're going to write multiple pieces of code, and you may not have the time to go through each one again and again when you forget that which code is which. So to do this, we use comments. You can write a simple comment next to it saying this is the code for running, this is the code for jumping. So there are two types of codes, two types of comments. First of all, single line comments. So single line comments are represented by two forward slashes, and as the name suggests, these comments only last for a single line. They are very short and usually don't take up a lot of space. Then secondly, multi-line comments. Multi-line comments are represented by a forward slash, an asterisk, then you insert your comment, then after that you end it with an asterisk and a forward slash again. So as the name suggests, just like single line comments, multi-line comments are used for multiple lines and they usually take up a lot of space. Okay, let's move on to variables. So, firstly, what are variables? Variables are named values which store any type of JavaScript values or data types. For example, var a is equal to 15. So, you might not be knowing what's a data type, and as you may know, we'll be learning about it next. Reassigning variables. Okay, so this is one thing you have to remember. Variables can be reassigned to uh, any other value at any point in the code. Let's take an example, right? So var a over here is equal to 5. Okay, so that means if you're going to write document.write a, then it's going to say 5. But here you're going to write var a is equal to 8, right? So then if you write a document.write after this piece of code, it's going to say 8. But if you write it before this piece of code over here somewhere, then then it's going to say 5. Okay, so what are the rules for naming variables? Basically, variables, there are many rules to name them, and this is so that you can name a correct variable and it doesn't come incorrect in JavaScript. First of all, variable names cannot contain any spaces. If so, then for any of these rules, if they don't follow these rules, then there'll be an error in the code because the variables won't be counted as a variable. So they cannot contain spaces, first of all. Then they must begin with an underscore, a dollar sign, or a letter. And then after this, after the starting, you can use all three of these along with numbers. Okay, so one thing we must remember is that since JavaScript is case sensitive, like I said, capital H in happy as a variable and happy as a normal variable won't be the same. Another thing we must remember is that we cannot name variables after JavaScript tags. For example, we cannot name var document.write. Okay. Now let's start with the most important in this part of the JavaScript data types, right? So there are four main data types which are strings, float, boolean, and undefined. You may not know all of these now, but once we get into each one, I'm sure you'll understand them. Okay, so strings. What are strings? The string data type is a data type which consists of words and numbers inside of single or double quotation marks. If you don't know these are double quotation marks. This is a single quotation mark. You can put any of them for strings, but you must put them on both sides. So strings they usually contain words, letters, but they can also contain numbers. Now, why are numbers not usually used as strings? This is because we cannot add strings we cannot add strings to themselves. This will cause an error and it will result it to go in an NaN output, which is not a number when they are acted by arithmetic operators. Although you can only add a string to a float. This will cause string concatenation, which we'll be learning about later. So, the Boolean data type. The Boolean data type is a simple one. It consists of two main outputs, true or false. This Boolean data type is usually an output for if and else statements, as it is usually used there. When if it's true, then it performs something, then if it's false, it performs something else. We will be learning about this later also. The float data type. So the float data type is a data type which consists of mainly numbers. So like I said earlier, you can add, subtract, divide float data types, but you cannot, as they contain mainly numbers. But you cannot add or subtract float data. You cannot subtract numbers as a string data type. That's why most numbers are written as floats. And finally, the undefined data type. The undefined data type consists of only one variable, uh, consists of only a variable being registered. For example, you just write var a. So in this case, variable a is just being registered and it doesn't have a value yet. So it is undefined. So that is it for the first module of our JavaScript chapter. Um, Watch the next one till complete learning JavaScript. And once you're done, you can visit back anytime or you can just learn more by yourself online. That's it for this part. Thank you. So, the arithmetic operators. To start with, addition. The addition operator is represented by the plus sign. It adds two values together, which we already know. Now, subtraction and multiplication are just the same, as well as division. The subtraction operator is represented by the minus sign. It finds the difference between two values. Now, multiplication operator. The multiplication operator is represented by an asterisk, not a multiplication sign. It multiplies two values. Now, division. The division operator is represented by a forward slash, not the normal division sign. It divides one operator by another. The modulus operator. Now, the modulus operator is a separate operator which can be considered as a subclass of the division operator. It is represented by the percentage sign and it finds the remainder of the division in between the two values. But this is only when the first value is greater than the second value. If the first value is smaller than the second value, it just returns the first value. If you want to learn more about JavaScript, if you're really interested, you can learn more through many websites you can find online, like W3 Schools. That's it for my JavaScript chapter. Thank you.